This is your home for the most competitive football in the state of Michigan. Your home for the most comprehensive coverage week in and week out. This is the Mac Attack with Zack and Zach.
Gentlemen, still weird to be talking about football in January. I'm not going to lie. Regional semifinal action in Bryce, Zach. This is where the Mac Red bows out. West Bloomfield just fabulous on Saturday. Romeo couldn't keep up. 50-14, and Zach, this is kind of what you and I saw coming. We saw ways for Romeo to be able to sidestep some of these things, and they just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, nice run by the Romeo Bulldogs. They should be proud of themselves, regardless. That there were some factors on West Bloomfield that we knew it was going to be a test, no doubt. But I will say, it was still within hunt. Even at the end of the first half, which is not bad. They didn't let it get completely
That's where you want to
away
be
from them. Yes, against a team like this, absolutely. That's all you can do is hope to hold a little bit. It didn't get out of hand early on the way it did with Stevenson. I want to say the week prior, but the game prior.
It was 2 months prior, and it felt at one point it was 21-0. It felt like Romeo was about to hit that running clock at halftime.
Yeah.
And eventually that did happen. Romeo was able to slash it, but the running clock, I don't know if it was a possession or what it was, but Romeo did a really good job. I think between the end of the first quarter and into the second quarter, West Bloomfield had scored 3 times in a row, and it's little victories against a team like West Bloomfield. Then Romeo kept them out of the end zone 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
3 times in a row.
That's a big win.
And I thought to myself, I said, self, this is the trend that you want to see. But the problem was that Romeo's offense was too stagnant. They couldn't. You've got to keep the ball out of the hands,
which
of
has
the
been
West
their
Bloomfield
problem all
offense.
year.
Exactly, and there was a lot of 3 and outs. And Zach, I noticed this. You and I talked about trick plays. Kind of like keeping them on their toes. If you've got to
putting it all out there, nothing to lose at this point.
There might have been a little too much of that. The play calling was a little creative at times, and I understand why you do that, but it feels like you got to put your best foot forward, and at times it felt like Romeo was limiting themselves, and you're already swimming upstream against just a very good West Bloomfield team.
You have to play perfect, and they played far from that.
It looked like early on into the game, they were really putting the offense on the back of Logan Rolfs and saying, make something happen here. And, a lot of run plays. You've got
a 1,500-yard rusher on that team, and I didn't see a whole lot of them.
And that's what I was kind of curious to see, too, if you are going to go at a team like West Bloomfield with a run game, because we saw early on, they had a quick pick down in, I think, in the Bulldogs' red zone.
Well, that was one of the huge problems, Zach, is the West Bloomfield had such excellent field position all day long. I mean, just they didn't have to do much.
No, but looking at it too, it's like if where was St. Clair in the first half? That was kind of the big question. Well,
he wasn't hurt because he was dressed, and then as soon as Romeo came out for defense, he was out there. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just it's interesting to see that, but at the same time, it was if anybody was actually watching that game on Twitch through the Free Press stream, I mean, you got a bit of a treat getting to watch a player like Edwards. I mean,
dude.
I was texting with some other people back and forth too, and the consensus was it felt like every time the kid touched the ball, he could score if he wanted to.
I mean, being on the sideline,
basically.
Being on the sideline and seeing that was like even more up close.
Yeah.
It's crazy. He's by far the best player I have ever seen, in a football game at high school. By far.
And he left 2 Mac Red teams in his path, in the wake of his path over this playoff run. And he's,
we're talking like 500 yards and 10 touchdowns in the last 2 games against Stevenson, one of the best defenses in Macomb County, which people are, Macomb County. I'm like, we can come down here and say that again,
Right.
And for Romeo, Romeo's defense is always going to be their backbone, but guys like Weston Jones and Michael Heldman a couple times, he had a nice tackle on Donovan Edwards there, but it's that's not enough.
Yeah, no, he's one of those players where, there's a reason why West Bloomfield's 8-1, and they've kind of walked through the last 2 rounds of playoffs here. I mean, and it's been that way the entire season. But I think there's some question right now as to whether or not he'll even be back for the next game. I
Well,
don't know.
it sounds like it, but we said he wouldn't, and that was the notion when we
Early
recorded
on,
last
yeah.
time. And that's one of those things where this will never be a problem ever again. We never play football in January.
Right,
This is
right.
completely
Very
uncharted
unique.
uncharted territory.
You better be knocking on wood right now.
I mean, well, but I mean, no, because I think the lesson next time is wait.
push it back.
Uh,
well, let
do
me.
we-
Or if you're gonna do
we
it, do it all the way through, and so we don't have this.
We can talk about this later, but looking backwards,
Well, to get back to the game though, let me
Thank
ask you
you.
this. We
because
saw
I've got some thoughts otherwise.
we saw Davison pull off their win in the playoffs without Brendan Sullivan at quarterback.
It just goes to show you that these teams, you look at a kid like Harry Younger, these teams are more than one
Yeah.
player. That's what's so much fun about so many of these programs.
And that's the question I was going to pose to both of you. You take Edwards out of this equation
Well,
with this West Bloomfield team.
you talking about this time or next time?
This time. I'm wondering, do the Bulldogs pull off the game? Do they have enough in their team
I don't
to
know
get them
if,
through this?
I don't know if they win. I mean, everybody outside of Donovan Edwards, they were stopping with their first string defense. It's just Donovan Edwards is so hard to stop.
Right.
They gave him the ball, and you think you have him corralled, and he makes one cut, and
Listen,
next time you see him, he's 40 yards down the field.
He's a very, very different player than
Understatement.
the kid on Stony Creek.
Look, Cam
shut
Burford's
down.
a good player.
He's a great
Like,
player.
he's no Donovan Edwards.
But Romeo was able to take him out
I
of the
think
equation.
Burford was the OAA's leading rusher.
Yeah,
Okay,
he was.
there you-
Same league.
There you go. You can't ask. I hate to make this comparison, but it's a man amongst boys. I mean, it really is.
I think
when you get
he's
player
playing
like
a
that.
different game.
Right,
You watch
exactly.
him, it's like he's not playing the same game that everybody else around him is.
And it's effortless.
Yeah.
It
Well,
really is.
It's like you'd watch him walk up to the line of scrimmage almost and kind of just, take a look and say, all right, here we go. And I know that it's so much more than that, but he makes it look so easy. But I got to be honest with you, Zach. I said it. I don't feel like Romeo put themselves in their best position to be successful. So no.
And Donovan Edwards doesn't play defense. That you have to put up
There you
points.
go. Yeah.
52-14. Look, is it if you subtract Donovan Edwards and his 4 touchdowns and 246 yards, is it a different game? Yes. No question.
Is it a different outcome?
No. I don't think
fair.
so.
That's fair.
I don't think so. Look, but maybe. I will say this. The one out I'll give Romeo in that scenario is not only is Donovan Edwards physically just dominant, he is mentally devastating because there's just nothing you can do. It's like a house fire. You just stand there and watch your things burn.
I'm running
doesn't
back.
feel-
I'm running back inside.
It doesn't feel, but you're going to, you know what happens? Mass injury.
Yeah. No.
Somebody is dragging your smoke-filled body out.
So the result is kind of what we expected, but my thing is what does this mean for the MAC Red going into next season? This was such an odd season. We had Romeo at the bottom of the power rankings at the beginning of playoffs, and they're the team that made it the furthest. You've got a team like Stevenson and Dakota, who are the co-champs. You had a team like Grosse Pointe South that went out first round, but there were some details that couldn't really tie into that loss. I think they would have made it much further if it wasn't for that poll that they made with the team that
Oh,
was still playing yesterday or on Saturday.
Dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Rayshawn Benny, man, at Oak Park.
But what does this
crazy.
mean for the future of the Red? Because I don't think you could make one. I don't think Romeo would be on the bottom anymore. Two,
It wouldn't be much higher.
I don't know where any team shakes up. Who do you put on the top?
I don't think you. I mean, who do you put
And
on
I'm
the
not
top?
saying Romeo, but I'm saying
Stevenson.
Okay.
I mean, you lose Giovanni El-Hadi, and that's it. I'm a huge loss, literally and figuratively, right? I mean, but what you bring back offensively with the two Jordans
They do have the most production returning.
and Biagio Madonna at quarterback, and we talk about kids that don't play defense. Those kids do play defense,
Yeah.
Right.
And so you get them back on both sides of the ball, and you look at Dakota with they lose DeJavian Stepney. You lose, in fact, you lose a few kids there at Dakota, but at the same time, you get a kid like Caden Sloan back. Mm-hmm. You look at Chippewa Valley right? Schuster showed flashes. They were the ones that really threw me for a loop this year, and I bet they're feeling the same way. And, you talk about a team like Eisenhower. Are they going to be good next year? I don't know. Are they going to be good in 2 years? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The next 2 to 3 years are going to be something special.
And Grosse Pointe,
they've got the most important position.
Yes, right.
And Grosse Pointe South too. You get Will Johnson back, and in fact you get the quarterback. I mean, look,
and Romeo, hopefully he'll play more on offense next year. Like they'll involve him more.
Yeah, I think with this year, I don't want to say anybody held back, but I think if you're a kid like Will Johnson, like, will you be more involved next year? I think
I would if I'm the head coach. Yes.
And Romeo, don't forget, plagued by
Tim
injury.
Brandon knows. I mean, he's been there for 17 years. I mean,
they've got a lot of kids who they were incorporating a lot of sophomores into the gameplay this year.
They had to,
and those kids are going to benefit, and that team's going to benefit as a result of that because you get some real time.
I mean, the real only problem is that their offensive line, 4 out of 5 of them are seniors.
Yeah, I mean, and some of those big boys. I mean, Romeo's done a really good job with kids like Weston Jones, and I mentioned Michael Heldman earlier. You lose Brian St. Clair, it's 1,500 yards out of your backfield. But, and you could cop out and say, and this is something that I think, this is the end of the second season of this podcast. There is no top and there is no bottom.
That's the beautiful thing about the MAC Red.
It's all an illusion. It's all a mirage. Nothing lasts, right? I mean, there's toggling, and even from top to bottom, it's like, you're surprised. No matter who's at the bottom, you're like, wow, who would have ever thought that this team would be at the bottom? And it's like, it doesn't matter who it is. You're always going to say that because the caliber of this league is just ridiculous.
At the end of the day, one team has to win, one team has to lose.
Well, you just summed up round 1 of the playoffs for the Bulldogs. Nobody expected them to go in and upset Dakota first round, but they did.
That was the second round. They played Anchor Bay first round.
That's right. I'm sorry.
It's the first round is very nebulous because was it the play? I mean, yes, it was, but at the same time,
essentially it was the playoffs, but
everybody was in.
Yeah,
normal circumstances.
I mean, even Romeo
would have ended over 2 months ago.
Yeah,
yes,
I mean, unless they're out of conference games, they could have won. But that's a hypothetical. You don't know it until
what's unfortunate about this year is I was excited a year ago was we were going to get a new playoff format,
and then you did. You did get
not the one.
Touche.
Well said. Not the one I wanted because they were doing away with 6 and in. It was going to be based on the point system, strength of schedule, and so maybe Romeo would have gotten in with that considered. And again, the point of we don't know what the out of conference games would have looked like. It's completely correct. So we should over the next week or so, talk about what next year is going to look like, the way things are going to play out. But, I got to say, for Romeo, that's not the way you want it to end. But, I mean, look, you got a district championship out of the deal. This was a really brutal season for the Bulldogs, and at times it felt like things were totally out of control, and there was nowhere to go except for, I don't want to say down, but you were just stuck in this weird spot that you didn't expect to be in, that you didn't, you couldn't get out of, and then all of a sudden things just start to click in the playoffs. Maybe you did get, I don't want to say lucky, but maybe the matchups were a little more in your favor than they could have been with Anchor Bay and Stony Creek. But I mean, look, you're looking at an Anchor Bay team that has a coach that's won 4 state championships. They had a good season on their own end. They won the white. And for a team like Stony Creek, they also won the white in the OAA, and you get a kid like Cam Burfoot. It's not like Romeo just rolled over. You mentioned Dakota and what happened there. There's going to be talk about that game forever.
Yeah,
I can't wait till those two teams match up next year. That's gonna be fun.
Man.
I'm already calling that our game of the week before it even.
By the way, just because it's only one game, Zach, I'm glad you said that. The game of the week is brought to you by Alma College, where your life's work is waiting. Travel to the heart of the mitten and check out Alma College. You'll find a campus that feels like home with small classes and endless opportunities. The Alma commitment also means an on-time graduation guarantee, academic and career planning, and $2,500 to explore the world outside of the classroom. And this is not the last episode, Zach, but I do want to thank Alma for
absolutely
being along with us all season long.
They're big into the MAC. That's for sure. And
Yes.
that was a huge part of them reaching out to us and being a part of the program.
You look at that league, and it's just littered.
And they're still going to play.
With-
Hey, you still got games to look forward to. If you want football in the spring,
I'm saying
you got it.
Yeah, yeah, and again, we'll talk more about the season as a whole, because I think that there is some things to look at. It was an unusual season, but look, at some point the world is going to right itself, and we're going to get back to something a little more normal. And I mean, God, I hope by next season, right, later this year, that things are back to normal. We're playing a full slate of games, and there are people in the stands, and and I will say this too. I don't know what's going to happen with winter sports. I know that there's some optimism there, but at the same time, like I don't have objections. I just we saw the way things went with even some outdoor sports, and it wasn't always that simple. And I will say this: I am hopeful for spring sports. I don't know why. Maybe I shouldn't be, but
I've been in contact with a couple basketball coaches. Just the nature of the business I'm in. They're
being tall
up.
is that
That's not a prerequisite.
I'm not in that club. I don't get those phone calls.
No, just they're gearing up for their season. They're
Literally
starting to get their apparel orders. Yes,
Come on.
And
Well,
they're optimistic that
Hey, you gotta be.
With that, I have another question. How much does this near 2-month layoff play into this game? Because I know for Romeo, they have a lot of kids that play other sports. So at what point do they stop thinking about football? Because it didn't feel like everybody
was there,
wanted to be there.
That's fair, and that's kind of where we compared that mental aspect of being in that right mindset.
And the whole start-stop thing too, right? I mean, they were going to play, they weren't going to play, they were going to play.
Thanksgiving and Christmas happened in that time span between games.
But Bryce, I will say this: as far as if they were focusing on other sports, unless it was a conditioning aspect, they haven't really been able to participate.
I'm just saying, like mentally,
no, I can see that. It depends on, we've seen, it seems like you're picking a sport and you're running with it, whereas back in the day you were mediocre at like 3 different sports.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now it's more of a specialized thing, and you'll play one of these other sports to be conditioned and to stay in shape in the off season. And that depends on the individual, of course.
Track programs have, I don't want to say benefited from that, but
I would say they have.
Especially in middle school.
But track programs will say, we're talented whether you give us the football kids or not, right? But yeah, you look at some of those kids, dude, it's like, man, it's unbelievable. So, like I said, so optimism from the basketball people?
Optimism.
Cautious optimism?
Yeah, I think based on the way things have gone the last, ever since the beginning of the school year, I think they'd be silly not to be cautious with their optimism. Yeah. But you still have to you have to prepare like it's going to happen, because they're not going. And if it's a flash, if it's 6 games and a break, that's what it's going to have to be, because you can't push this out much further.
No,
how are we? How are we going to fit in? Spring sports.
It's already late, yeah.
We're going to get into the point where they're still playing like after last year's championship would have ended.
And don't forget, you're coming into a baseball and softball season where these kids didn't even play a game.
Yeah,
they didn't get anything in. So they're going to.
I'm sure most of them probably played travel in the summer.
But they're still fighting for
it's not the same.
They're going to be fighting for a season now, because you're not starting your winter sports until early February. Early February. You're almost 3 months behind.
Yeah.
How does that fit in with a school year where these kids are going to be exiting in June?
Nothing fits.
No.
It's this
There's
year.
Still a lot to talk about.
Through the end of the 2021 school year, which a couple months out, it's just about making things fit. Nothing's going to make sense. Nothing's going to work.
You might
the way you
for
want
basketball.
it to.
They might have to play 3 games a week instead of 2 in order to just fit it in.
Yeah.
And that's
Cut your
feasible.
schedule down.
That's feasible. You cut it down to 15 games, 3 games a week. There you go. 5 weeks,
and then you're in the playoffs.
Done.
I don't see another way, because spring sports aren't going to make a concession. They made a concession on their entire season last year.
Yeah, and with a lot of the spring sports like baseball and softball, you can do some double headers. I mean, that's not out of the question.
And being outside, right? I mean, that's one thing that
and
works to their
it
benefit.
will be warmer too.
Could you do things simultaneously? I mean, I know it's going to be.
What does that mean? Sports?
Have
Basketball and like baseball, softball at the same
starting
time.
at the same time.
Choices may have to be made.
To be honest, I don't think many baseball kids play basketball. I think it's very limited.
Yeah.
So I think you could do that. It's about because you have lacrosse too, and you have the track and field, and then what else do you got?
Well, you got basketball and softball though too for girls. I don't know if that's more of a.
And there's soccer in the springtime.
I mean,
Right.
again, choices. Nothing in this year has been perfect, and we can debate the way it's been executed. But this is just one of those years where, unfortunately, for these kids, choices are likely going to have to be made, and some of those choices they won't get a say in, and that is what is most frustrating. We'll come back and put a bow on this entire season. But again, congratulations to Romeo winning a district championship, and for what it's worth, you're going to get a fantastic game between West Bloomfield and Belleville. I mean, you're talking about a kid like Donovan Edwards, and then you look at Belleville and Christian Dew Reed. I mean, the all-time touchdowns leader in the state of Michigan.
Is this a rematch of last season?
It is a rematch from the regional. So this is a semifinal matchup. Last year they played in the regionals, and Belleville a winner in that one. So West Bloomfield definitely going to go for revenge.
And you have a berth for a state championship.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot going on there. So keep your eye out for that one if you're looking for some football on Saturday. We'll be back, 32andmain.com.
Thanks for listening to the Mac Attack with Zack and Zack. For more, visit 32andmain.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Mac Attack Pod. And don't forget to like the Mac Attack with Zack and Zack on Facebook. The Mac Attack is a proud member of the 32 and Main Network.